Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. In the last part we finished off the 4th tier, getting a few other items done in the process, and now it's time for us to start off tier 5 with Gone Tomorrow. Like with Future Frenzy, a little bit of a lengthy level this time around, and in order to get either the clear gems here, including the box gem, you do need the green gem in order to access a certain platform we can't get to otherwise. Either way, what I just showed off there is the fruit bazooka we got last part, where if you hold L2, you get to use a bazooka and aim. The vertical aim of the bazooka is notably inverted, so up goes down and otherwise. And I believe otherwise positioning for left and right might be dependent on where Crash is on screen. I'm not entirely certain. But the depth perception with this thing is definitely far from the best. Because you can even aim further right, and if something is in front of you, or like is closer to the front of the screen rather, but you aim right and it would pass behind it, it'll instead jump to the front for some reason to aim at that for some reason. The aiming is weird. Thankfully, they do make an active sound when you can hit something with it, so they at least planned around the depth perception a little bit, but yeah, like, I only use this when I need to. Now, one thing I'll note again when we actually come back to this level for the gem. Do not destroy this arrow crate here. As you might notice, there is a lined crate on top, and we can only activate that by activating another exclamation point crate in the green gem pathway. So be careful, because otherwise you might accidentally end up destroying the wrong crates and therefore screw yourself out of the box gem even after going through all the effort. And there's another case like that later on in this stage too, I'll talk about when we actually get there. Otherwise, Gone Tomorrow is just a harder version of Future Frenzy, but it still has less going on, I feel. I don't know why. Tier 5 of Crash 4 is definitely, like, in terms of the individual platforming levels, the hardest levels in the game, at least out of the main 25. But I honestly feel it's a bit lackluster compared to even Tier 4. I don't know, there's something weird about it. Without a doubt, though, one of the most annoying things about the stage for me, though, is these weird floating spheroid enemies. Whenever they're red, surrounded by red, of course, that's a heat ray of sorts. You die when you touch that. But the moment I believe they start that animation, they're counted as a hitbox, so watch out for that. And what hit me? Okay. Yeah, the spike enemies as well have a little bit of weird stuff going on with their hitboxes. Alright, this is another case that I'll talk about when we actually come back here for the green gem. When you come through this level the first time, on the way to the green gem pathway, which is still ahead of us, only destroy the 2 boxes around that TNT crate. Don't destroy the TNT crate itself, because, as you might remember from earlier stages, TNT crates can activate exclamation point blocks even 2 blocks away from them. And we're going to need to do that just there. Now, I believe I mentioned it before, but I'm not exactly the biggest fan of the power-ups in Crash 3, and I think I've started to figure out why. How often they come into use. Barring the double jump and the death tornado spin, which are honestly super useful, and you use them for the rest of the game once you get them. The fruit bazooka, hyper belly flop, and even the power-up we get from the last boss, I feel are not very useful. And I'm thinking about it, I think it's because they only really come into play more often than not in the bonus rounds. Yeah, levels try and integrate them a little bit, like the 5th tier has a couple of cases where you can only reach boxes easily without a risk of death with the fruit bazooka, and they have boxes that you need to use the belly flop to break. Less so with the last power-up, that's more for another thing we haven't gotten to yet. But I honestly feel like if they had managed to fit them more organically into level design, like making it so you needed to press switches with the fruit bazooka or take out specific enemies with it, that it would have been a more useful system for me. And I think it's that very spotty nature of how useful the power-ups are, at least 3 of them are, that makes me prefer Crash 2's lack of power-ups more. Because even, like, because the power-ups do return in the other games, though some are innate from my memory, though I'm mostly thinking of Twin Sanity with that, because the double jump's innate in that one. And I feel like what they should have just done is keep some of them permanently as a permanent increase to Crash's abilities, and then just think of better ones to better integrate into certain levels from here on. But then again, this is also the last standard Crash game. Naughty Dog. I don't know why I'm standing still for so long. Why this is the last Crash game Naughty Dog developed, at least in terms of the main platformers, so I guess that idea was left to other developers, since Universal was shopping the property around. With mixed results, including giving it to a studio that only made, what, 2 games, I think, before being shut down by that Traveler's Tales division. Not as many boxes to be missed in this level by not going on the green gem path, though, compared to Future Frenzy. Don't worry, we'll get them all later. With that, now we're on to level 22. I believe this is Orange Asphalt. Yes, it is. This is our next motorcycle stage. Honestly, the biggest difference about these levels as you get through them is, I think, maybe the amount of lab assistance you have to race and the complications that lie in front of you as you drive. Be it the lab assistants themselves driving a bit smarter, the time needed to get first place being a bit stricter, or the placements of the booster pads being in harder to use as boosts locations. But that said, there is one very odd thing about this level, and that is, I believe that, if my memory serves correctly, there's a portion of this level in the background of the second, I think, Crash racing game, Nitro Fueled, which I think is purely for flavor, but cool, I guess? Oh, God. I had to pause because I wasn't sure if I broke down. I had to process the fact I heard the actual audio of the box breaking. Because whenever they require you to use a jump to break a box, the hit boxes on it are spotty. Especially in Insane Trilogy, or when you're doing the time trial. Because, oh boy, time trial for this stage is especially rough. Although, I'll go more into strategies for that, I think 2 parts from now? I'm thinking, I can't remember. I've edited most of the LP at this point. I actually still can't remember. Spotty memories. What do you mean I just got back into Final Fantasy XIV? Shut up. What do you mean I'm still working on the Yakuza 4 Platinum? Shut up. Honestly, I feel the motorcycle stages in this game are probably one of the gameplay styles I find the most egregious. Not because they're awful to play, no, I think they're fine, but we already have a race/rush forward type of level design in Crash 3 in the Tiger stages, so I don't know why they wanted to make 2 of them. I feel that's a little bit unneeded myself, but at the same time, it's cool for the cover art because I believe that's what the box art was in the US. Maybe even the Japanese version. I actually can't actively recall. Either way, thankfully, it's still a short stage, as most of the race stages are. Therefore, we are on to level 23. This is, I think, Flaming Passion. Yep. Time for us to get that green gem as well. Like certain other stages, though, this is a stage with a death route. So you need to get through about the first, maybe third of the level, I think, without dying. With that said, thanks to the very straightforward camera angles in a lot of this stage, it's a very easy stage, I feel, to use your Fruit Bazooka in, even if it is still a bit unwieldy to use. Now, this is a case where you can see the depth perception definitely isn't perfect, because I'm somehow shooting in front of that guy, and that just doesn't seem like it's working right. PlayStation 1 games, we love you. Because sometimes you provided a lot more value than it had any right to. But holy shit, could you be janky? I'm trying to think, what is probably the most jank game I've ever played that I still liked as a kid? Destroy All Humans had some of that and some of its structure, even though I liked that game a lot. Same with the first Jak and Daxter. Kingdom Hearts 1's a bunch of jank, but it's also the first game in the series, so I'm more willing to let that go. I say that after immediately talking about Destroy All Humans 1 and Jak and Daxter 1 now that I think about it. So no, never mind. Actually, no, you're not forgiven. PS2 had a lot of that, now that I think about it. Mind you, it's like the PS2 was such a big game library that they're on, you're no shit, you're gonna find some jank. That's what the Phoenix Games library is on. I don't know why, though. For some reason, I'm thinking about it. All 3 of the Arabian-themed stages in this game have color gems, because I think the first one has the yellow gem, second one had the purple gem, and this one has the green gem. I don't know why they decided this little variety of all things to have the gems, but cool, I guess. With that said, now it's time for us to go on the death route. With that said, there's going to be a checkpoint box in this route I actively ignore, because since it's a death route, I often try to take the strategy of get through it without dying and then die after getting the reward. With that said, unlike the previous death routes, this one doesn't lead to a level warp. So you can just get the gem and move forward, and you're only going to be about 3 seconds ahead of where you were. With that said, I also can't remember if there's any boxes in the in the space between, so I'm paranoid because of that. Hitbox on the fire is a little bit weird. Because obviously heat rises, so it's going to be bigger than you think it is to begin with, but it definitely feels like I should have been able to jump over it there. Fire's weird. It's one of those hitboxes that's either too small, too big, or... No, actually, no. I don't think I've ever seen a perfect fire hitbox. It's like heat is hard to program when it comes to damage. That's why the only game I've seen do it sort of right is Metroid, where you just enter a hot room and you're like, oh, no, I'm leaving. Yes, there was a single box in the space between the death route and the actual exit of the death route, which is straight ahead of us. So my death was warranted. It's also because I just don't like jumping backwards on these rotating carpets. It feels wrong. Backtracking in Crash games feels super clunky. And it makes me wonder how Crash 4 is going to handle that. But I guess I'll see. And I will have seen, hopefully, by the time this comes out. I cut that enemy stupid close looking back. Holy shit. I probably should have gotten hit there. Either way, time for the bonus round. We're actually super close to the end of level 2 right now. Because as it is, beyond this, there's just like 3 or 4 boxes. Something I do appreciate about the bonus levels in this game, though, is that it always uses the same song, but there's different instruments thrown in depending on which level type you're in. Like, in the medieval stuff, they go for more of a percussion thing. Here they go for more of a string-based sound. That's nice detailing. I think the Dynamite stages go for more of a drum sound? I actually can't remember right now. Either way, I'm fond of games that do this. It's kind of like how in Mario Sunshine, whenever you're on top of, like, Yoshi, or Mario World 2 for that matter, they add in a couple more instruments to the music. And I love... I forget what the term is for that. Is it dynamic music? Either way, I love it when games do that. It's just... It feels nice. I think... Did Ghost of Tsushima do that a little bit? I think it did. That game was really good. 2020, as bad as it's been for just about anything, has been pretty good for games. Early game reveals. Also, don't be like me. I now have 74 out of the 75 boxes. I can't see what the last one is. Gee, I wonder where it is. Yeah, I missed the box here. And I ended up doing an entire second run of the level here because I'm even thinking like, wait, I didn't miss a box. But why am I missing a box? Where'd it go? I didn't want to backtrack through the level, so I just replayed the entire thing, and it was right here I realized, shit. Don't you love it when you miss something and you're like, where did this thing go? Then you look back through the footage and you're like, oh, it's right there. I've had that happen a lot. Hidden in plain sight is the best but worst kind of hidden. Either way, Flaming Passion's another Arabian level. It's definitely the hardest of the 3, but I feel in terms of getting all the gems, it's one of the easiest. Just don't die in the early portions. If you can get past the hazards, and you're good. And now it's time for Mad Bombers, another dogfight stage.
Crash, Coco, remember, it is not only Dr. Cortex that we battle. Beware of Uka-Uka, my children. He is a far more dangerous enemy than anyone can imagine.
Alright, Mad Bombers is another bye-bye blimps-like dogfight stage, but it's exclusive to Crash, and it actually was as well in Insane Trilogy until a later update that allowed you to play as Coco in it. With that said, the blimps aren't the target here. This time it is biplanes. And the biplanes are a bit harder to damage than the blimps, because while the blimps are one giant hitbox, the biplanes only have two smaller hitboxes, an engine on either side of the main body. And the enemy biplanes here that actively try to shoot you are a lot more aggressive in this stage. So it's very easy to take a lot of damage super quickly if you're not A, turning rapidly, or B, mashing the spin button to do a barrel roll over and over again. Otherwise, though, this stage isn't too different. It's definitely the harder of the two, and I would say it's the hardest stage of this variety in the game. But otherwise, it's just a war of attrition, I feel. And one very interesting thing I forgot, well, not very interesting, but notable thing about these levels I forgot to mention during the first one. Aku-Aku, due to the health bar being a thing in these levels, is outright banned. So even if you have one before going into these levels, the game will outright remove them. So be careful, otherwise you're redoing a lot of stuff. Because I think another annoying thing about these particular stages is there's just no such thing as a checkpoint. If you die, you gotta start all over, and that's irritating. Still, controls a little better than the dogfight stages in Sly 3. God, I hate that chapter. I like a lot about that chapter's individual heist missions, but the dogfights and final boss of that chapter suck. Also, I don't know what it is, but there's something about Crash's pilot face portrait there that just unnerves me, and I don't know what it is. Part of it could be the fact that the flight cat makes it look like he has hair, like a Jimmy Neutron mom hairstyle going on. But I think it's in general just the pupilless eyes thanks to the goggles and that smile. Ugh. Crash series has some really weird art styles going on sometimes. And you know what? Not for nothing, I kind of appreciate some of the Japanese cover art designs where they try to make things a bit cuter looking. While I don't like the fact they changed the finger counts, I do like the eyes better in that art versus this art. Yeah, these stages otherwise aren't too interesting. Honestly, this is probably another gameplay style that could have been removed and I would have been just fine. And thankfully, it's not one that gets revisited too often. There's only 3 in this game. And I think there's a brief return to it in Wrath of Cortex in outer space with some really janky hit detection. But that's Mad Bombers. It's another one of those stages. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching. And in Part 8, we're finishing off Tier 5 and technically going up against the final boss. But there's a reason Part 8 isn't the final part. See you guys then.